a rabbi, a minister, and a priest. They were all talking about their facilities, their houses of prayer and study. Each of them commented on the finer aspects of their buildings until the priest owned up that he had rats in his basement. His parish decided to put cheese up the stairs from the basement to the outside door. Once the rats were outside, they closed the door, were done with the rats, so they thought. The rats all returned. Protestant minister fessed up that he had a similar problem. So his custodian collected all the rats in burlap sacks, carried them a mile away to the other side of the river. But as with the priests, all the rats returned. The rabbi said, "I too have had a problem with rats in my building. They were all over, everywhere. But we decided to be creative. We gave each rat a bar mitzvah, and after that, we never saw them again." Oh, so true with some Jewish kids. It may sound funny, but to be perfectly honest, upon reflection, our laughter may mirror the painful reality the joke represents. And that raises, friends, a profound concern not only about the 13-year-old kids who learn for their service, have their celebration, and go away, but also about their Jewish identity after they have grown up. What is it about Jewish life that leaves us with a pediatric connection to our people and our faith? Children who end their Jewish education at their B'nai Mitzvah can still become committed adult Jews, but the chance that they will is decidedly diminished. If our Jewish education ends at 13, even as adults, we may maintain middle school-aged conceptions of Judaism. No other subject can be sufficiently explored and completed by the age of 13. No child could claim to be well-versed in mathematics or literature by 7th grade, let alone one's total knowledge of medicine, finance, health, or sex. Our synagogue is not a child's institution. Judaism is not only for children. Though the questions and the concerns change along the way, our faith, our heritage, our traditions provide a framework for living at all stages of life. When Pharaoh spoke to Moses, he said to the Israelites, "Go worship your God. With whom shall you go?" And Moses answered, "With our young and with our old we shall go." We are one of the few institutions in this continent and around the world that has claims on all ages. And we must realign our commitments so our young and our old and all in between can re-engage with Judaism. Clayton Christensen of Harvard Business School wrote a brilliant essay called "How Will You Measure Your Life?" His last day of class is not spent on charts, widgets, or principles of management. Rather, he asks his students to figure out how they will be happy and how to make significant relationships in their lives ahead. I promise my students that if they take the time to figure out their life purpose, they'll look back on it as the most important thing they discovered. If they don't figure it out, they will just sail off without a rudder and get buffeted in the very rough seas of life. The metric by which God will assess my life isn't dollars, but the individual people whose lives I've touched. That need for a moral compass, a spiritual direction towards a higher purpose, is exactly the reason that we all gather tonight on this Atonement Eve. Some of us have been battered at sea. Some are looking to chart a healthy course ahead. Others are being challenged by the meaning and purpose of life. And we all need connection to one another, to our people, to our God. You see, my friends, the word religious comes from the Latin religare, meaning binding oneself to common life, to morals and beliefs. We are connected one to another. The very ties that bring us together, the values we share, the heritage we affirm, the reason synagogues throughout the world are filled tonight, these ties bind us to one another. And especially in this enormously complicated, fast, what's in it for me, traffic-inducing, rushed-paced Los Angeles, we do need an oasis for spirituality and healing, a sanctuary of the soul that makes Judaism relevant, where the evolving nature of Torah comes alive. Our synagogue, friends, is not a place for Judaism a la carte. It fosters togetherness. It builds community. Our sisterhood has felt it. Our silver generation has felt it. Eklek mommyhood is starting it. Our Shabbat services in Ruby Garden with dinner following have been exciting. We must find new pathways to engagement, to bring in our teens and our adults as well, to deepen our lives, to connect as modern Reform Jews, and create a vibrant synagogue culture. We wish our teens did not walk away from further learning just at the moment when their identity formation is most in need of support. As they transition from children to adults, they need the knowledge about morality and ethics that Judaism can provide, instead of seeking values from Twilight or from the latest issue of Celebrity or Us magazine. Though our numbers are higher at University Synagogue, Rabbi Jonah Pesner notes a national trend that perhaps 80% of the children who become B'nai Mitzvah will have no relationship whatsoever with their synagogue by the time they reach their senior year of high school. And that's paralleled by the 80% of unaffiliated Jews here in the Western United States. Even fewer will live their lives as active Jews. And that's why I'm proud that our Union for Reform Judaism nationally is really focusing on this issue of teen engagement. But what if we could reverse that trend? What if teens and their families found relevance, community, and purpose in all their Jewish connections? How would our Jewish lives now and in the future be changed? So I'd love to continue this dialogue about what we can do better to nurture the roots of our young adults before their wings set them on an unknown path. Maybe there are new vehicles for coming together that you can share with us so that together we can continue to foster the connections we all need so desperately. Our teens deeply crave relationships, relevance, and respect. When our teens feel that they will be listened to free of our judgments, when we reflect only love and care for their well-being, they open up their hearts, their souls, and their minds. Teens are so used to shutting down because they are talked to and talked at more often than listened to in a way that reflects the dignity they deserve. They want to talk about drugs, about sex, about peer pressure, about parents, technology, academic pressures, stress, and where they belong. They have a need for connection and friendship. And I'm very proud that within this house of God, our Tichon Tuesday nights are filled with great energy. Our Unity High School youth group is vibrant and welcoming. We are proud to have one of the best post-B'nai Mitzvah programs in Southern California. We've created our religious school retreat programs. We take our kids to Washington, D.C. in the confirmation year to lobby in Congress, to learn, to socialize, away from the classroom, where we can spend Shabbat together, to sing songs around a fire, to care for one another, despite the baffling feeling that our kids attend 45 different schools. We can do more. At the time when our teens are pushing the parental envelope, they need a place like University Synagogue to forge Jewish relationships and explore Jewish values. That's exactly the focus of what our Joshua Project has been all about, to connect spiritually, and to build community in a new way, to reimagine what we do at the synagogue and how we do it, to rediscover the treasures of our people and our faith, and to re-engage ourselves as congregants, to renew our lives. In the last year, we've had our nights of 100 Shabbat experiences, Chapter 2 gatherings for those around the age of the empty nest. Actually, that's about my age, if I hadn't met Margaret and had our twin daughters who are now 9. But now, here at Temple, we're revamping how we do things through the initiatives of congregants. One recently about how to pray, the other questioning belief in God, and more to come through our other task forces. So many of you asked to feel involved and connected, and we are doing our very best to not simply create a program, expect a turnout, and sell you a ticket. We need to belong with heart and soul to our people, to our tradition, to our synagogue, and feel bonded to one another. The Gerer Rabbi was appalled at his students who didn't know what happened to one of their peers. So he yelled at them, "You study together, you pray together, you sit together, you eat together, you celebrate your festivals together, and you don't know if he's sick or well?" To adapt the Rebbe's concern to our own, if our congregants do not know each other, mean little to each other, can we expect them to learn to pray together, to learn together, to act together, or stay together? We need a sense of community and peoplehood here to put our ethics and our aspirations into reality. And this concern about caring for one another and knowing each other is of paramount importance for our teens as well as for our adults. The best way our synagogue can foster those relationships is to encourage you to participate in a chavurah. Chavurah is a word from the same Hebrew root as chaver, chaverah, chaverim. It means friends, and it can offer you and your family a way to develop closer personal ties with other members of our wonderful synagogue who may share your interests or who you may want to get to know as new friends. Through your participation in chavurot and through our synagogue's nurturing of them, we can develop more meaningful relationships with one another and create a stronger synagogue community for years to come. Each chavurah becomes a small community of congregants who come together to socialize, study, celebrate Jewish life together, or take any focus the group chooses. Each chavurah defines its own goals and means and growth for self-expression. A chavurah can provide an opportunity for personal and spiritual growth and a chance to make new friends or improve the bonds with current friends. There's information in our sparkling High Holy Day pamphlet, a table in the grand lobby. Other members can talk to you about chavurot. You can sign up or you can go to our website and take the first step. I've spoken with many members whose lives have benefited from being in a chavurah. Some of the chavurot we've had at the synagogue have been around for years. It's about spending time with people who are trying to provide a really special Jewish experience for themselves and their family. When I grew up, I had my grandparents and 2 sets of uncles, aunts, cousins, all nearby. I had an extended family here, and we celebrated all the Jewish and American holidays together. And yet my parents knew as we were growing up that they wanted to be part of a chavurah to help create a connection on a smaller scale within the larger synagogue community, to foster friendships with other Jews in a more intimate way. Some of us, to be honest, seek an extended family because it may be hard to create the feel of a Shabbat dinner alone, or build a sukkah by ourselves, or light the Hanukkah candles in isolation, or have a Passover Seder with a small group. But imagine for just a second what it might mean for the children of 10 or so Jewish men or women, all with hammers and nails and saws, helping to build a sukkah. Moms and dads, adults, gathering flowers and fruit to decorate it, to the kids to see Jews celebrating Judaism in their own backyards. With the encouragement and help of other families, the goal of a family dinner in the sukkah, by the light of a Chanukiah, or spilling wine on the Haggadah with new friends can be a reality. And imagine how a new widow might feel embraced by her chavurah, her surrogate family, when her own family members are either up north or back east. My teacher, Harold Schulweis, describes the scene well. I saw who was at the funeral, who took care of the children during the black week of the Shiva. The widow remained within the chavurah, and it is the chavurah which made the widow's heart leap for joy. It's hard to be alone. Some of us feel very distant from relatives. Some of our own grandchildren live far away. We have plenty of kids here in our synagogue whose Nana and Papa are out of town. What a shidduch! The chavurah offers us a community small enough to enable personal relationships to develop. A chavurah can enable a family to express its Jewishness without depending on experts, without the faceless relationship of a lecture. Hopefully, our synagogue will gradually be transformed into a congregation in which chavurot meet for eating and schmoozing, for prayer, for study and celebration, not as isolated men and women, but through the joy of shared learning, the sense of community, as teens and adults who want to be engaged in our tradition, who want a spiritual connection, who want to create the ties that bind. We all know that story about the little boy who asked his Zadie, "Zadie, why does Mr. Pappenhofer go to the synagogue?" Grandpa responded, "Mr. Pappenhofer goes to the synagogue to talk to God." "And Zadie," responded the lad, "why do you go to the synagogue?" "I go to the synagogue. I go to talk to Mr. Pappenhofer." But isn't there beauty in that story? That there's friendship created through prayer? Friends, I really am in love with synagogues, and I firmly believe they have the best chance of building real community. Community whose space is devoted to caring for the young and the old and everybody in between. Synagogues are one of the few institutions in contemporary American Jewish society that appeal to all kinds of Jews. With more participatory and uplifting experiences, people might begin to put out the buzz that there's something meaningful going on here, that something can touch us and move us and motivate our children or grandchildren, inform us and stimulate us to be part of this special community. We have to provide numerous opportunities for our teens and our adults to reach out and see what's inside. What wonderful experiences can happen because we are members of University Synagogue. There once was a poor, God-fearing Jew who lived in the city of Prague. One night he dreamt that he should journey to Vienna. In his dream, he dreamt that at the base of a bridge leading to the king's palace, there he would find a buried treasure. Night after night, the dream recurred until, leaving his family behind, he traveled to Vienna to see what his dream had foretold. The bridge, however, was heavily guarded. The watchful eyes of the king's soldiers guarded the bridge day and night and afforded little opportunity to retrieve the treasure. Every day, this poor Jew spent hours pacing back and forth across the bridge, waiting for his chance. After 2 weeks, one of the guards grabbed him by the lapels of his coat and demanded gruffly, "Jew, what are you plotting? Why do you keep returning to this place day after day?" Frustrated and anxious, he blurted out the story of his dream. And when he stopped, the soldier, the guard, broke into uncontrollable laughter. The poor Jew looked on in astonishment, not knowing what to make of the man's reaction. Finally, the king's guard caught his breath. He stopped laughing long enough to say, "What a foolish Jew are you, you dreamer? Why, if I let my life be guided by visions, I'd be well on my way to the city of Prague. For just last night, I dreamt that a poor Jew in that city has, buried in his cellar, a treasure which awaits discovery." The poor Jew returned home. He dug in his cellar. He found the fortune. He dedicated tzedakah to build a synagogue. Upon reflection, he thought, the treasure was always in my possession, but I had to travel far away to know of its existence. so too in our time, many spiritually impoverished Jews travel in search, finally returning to Judaism to claim what is rightfully theirs. Return to the synagogue, form the connections of a lifetime, engage in this tradition, discover what is rightfully yours, your spiritual birthright, and here find the treasures of a lifetime. Amen.